Aloha, and welcome to the Learning Center's workshop series via Zoom. My name is Kili Ibalau, and I'm an academic support specialist at the TLC. Today's workshop, titled Constant Motivation Within the Home Environment, is hosted by Christian Mattiliano and Shanice Kinoshita. Christian is a major in sustainable science, and Shanice is a major in liberal arts. Shanice and Christian are employed as academic coaches through the Learning Center. Let me introduce Christian. Take it away, Christian.
Hi, my name is Christian, and I'm under the Sustainable Science Management course. And I'm presenting this presentation in regards of how I cope with the situation, due to the COVID-19 quarantine and stuff like that, and how I manage motivation and how I manage my home environment to adjust with it.
I'm Shanice. I am majoring in liberal arts, and I'll give some input on how I stay motivated. I also have 3 kids as well, so I can relate to a lot of mothers.
So for the agenda of the presentation, the main objective. So the main objective I'll explain further later on the presentation. The main thing for this presentation are skills that me and Shanice have used in our households, and hopefully students can calibrate a SMART goal on what needs to be prioritized in their household, knowing that we don't know when the quarantine is going to end or when the pandemic is going to be over. So making your home distraction free or reduced as possible is the main thing for our students, and adapting within the online environment. So the main objective, so distraction reduction in household. So many students, given even inside a normal classroom, face-to-face class, still have access to their phones. And that's the main issue, is like having a phone, for example, in your hand, maybe nearby you, or within your study area, is a problem, because you'll get more distracted as you try to study or while you're in class. And as I mentioned, I underline students' lifestyle. So that's a variable condition, knowing that I'm a student, a full-time student, and I cope with multiple siblings within a very small household. So communication is very important within this environment. And as for Shanice, her lifestyle is far different from mine, since she's a mother and she has to cope with her children. So knowing what things you have to adapt or modify is very important, and becoming efficient with those methods for your study habits and how you can increase your motivation for online courses. So my lifestyle is like that. So how about you, Shanice? How do you cope with your condition in your household?
So I am a mother of 3 children. My 3 kids are actually really close in age. My oldest is 4, and my youngest is going to be 2. The difference, I guess, between me and Christian is that his siblings are able to understand that he needs his space, whereas I need to bribe my children to stay out of my room so I can work on stuff. So it's finding little ways to kind of get around having your time to do things, even if it's just for a half an hour.
Now, for the skills and concepts that we want to use in our home environment is time management, incremental breaks with studying, communication with your instructor, action reward basis, ability to self-study with or without fellow classmates. So those skills or concepts are very important. For example, like what Shanice mentioned, action reward based. Bribing her children to the actions that they need for her to study is one of the ways for her to make her study habits to be more effective. And as for time management, we want to ensure that students, for example, make a time frame for your home to be more scheduled. So knowing that, let's say you start at 10 a.m., then study for 2 hours, but you have to know that you have to take breaks You don't want that mental fog in your head to just block your study habits. It's gonna wear you down just looking at a screen. So knowing that you have to take breaks are a very important thing to consider, and that communication with your instructor, always contact them via Zoom or email. Instructors nowadays are very likely to communicate with you very fast, knowing the COVID or quarantine situation is very harsh on many people. And self-study with or without your classmate can be important, but it's not so much of a big thing for many students, as we want you to just adjust with the online environment. So what are your methods or opinions onto these skills or concepts, Shanice?
Like, even how you said the action and reward basis with my kids, I never thought about it that way. But yeah, that is true. And taking your breaks also, because you only retain so much information that you read, and you have to constantly go back to it in order for you to retain it. So even if you're sitting there for 4 hours reading something, the chances of you remembering everything that you sat down and read could be slim, unless you break it up, like, okay, this day I'm going to read this next day I'm going to read this and that, so just finding your balance also with knowing how you and your mind works.
So distraction reduction methods, as I mentioned from the previous slides, are needed for our students within a daily, bi-daily, or weekly kind of habit. So for our students, the main thing or skill that we want you to retain are distraction or avoidance or methods that you want to use within your household. So for example, that chicken in the background, I can't remove that since it's my dad's property, but adjusting in what times that I can study. For example, scheduling a time frame where the chickens don't crow or anything like that. It's at my control when I study, and I just have to collaborate or communicate with my siblings, and knowing that being quiet at a certain time is important for me. That can be applied for me. However, for Shanice, it's far more different. So how do you cope with the issues with how effective is it for you to communicate within your household?
0 to like almost none. My children don't understand that I have homework too. They go to preschool, but they don't have homework. And when they do have work, it's coloring pages or doing things of that sort. They don't understand the importance. And in their little heads, whatever they need at certain times, it like has to be done right then and there. So it's an adjustment to get yourself into the mode of being in school and doing your homework, coming out of it to help your kids, and then going right back into it. But yeah, it's an adjustment, and that's one goal that I think a lot of people have, is like trying your best to like stay focused.
And that's a good point, because skills within your household, I can apply it daily. However, Shanice can't maybe sometimes apply it maybe every other day or even weekly, depending on her situation. So knowing your lifestyle is very important, and like how you can control it. So being more effective within your household is the main thing for you as a student, and to communicate with the people or your environment.
Yeah.
So the time frame is controlled, and other variables may not be, but try your best. And for the prioritizing the things you need to do. So from my point of view as a student, adapting to the online environment, knowing that we did not sign up for 5 online classes. I actually applied for 5 face-to-face online classes. So knowing that this sudden change due to the COVID situation, having to organize homework, presentations, and papers are a very difficult thing as of now. But making those small little incremental adjustments daily has helped me change my lifestyle.
Being a mom too, like I never expected to have to play teacher and mom. I don't think anybody really expected that. So it's balancing if your homework is more important or your kids. You know, like, do you work with your kids for this hour, or do you get homework that you forgot to turn in the past week? You know, so it's making sure that you find that balance so that your kids have the education that they need while you're still continuing yours. And I think that's why prioritizing and making that, adjusting your time to use it more efficiently so that everyone in your household, especially you yourself, get the time for yourself, but also for the things that you need to get done.
And that's a good point, because I used to go to the gym all the time before COVID, but I have to change things due to law and for safety purposes, or hanging out. You can't even hang out anymore, but that's all right. I can put the time that's lost into adapting to the online environment, so I can reorganize my mindset more into the online environment and how I can adjust, right? And being more efficient with the time that I have now within the household.
Right. Yeah. So in regards to the prioritization matrix, explaining it more in depth, what you would need to do now, which is the most important and urgent, is adapting to online, whether it's just for you yourself, for you and your family, or for you and your kids. That's something that you would have to put at the top of your priority list, only because you have to figure out a set schedule, because for you yourself, before COVID-19 came up, you were on a set schedule for your education, and so were your children in school. So it's balancing all of your schedules so that you're able to stay motivated doing everything, and then planning on how you can reduce your home distractions, whether it's hiding all of the remotes for the TV, or even phones and iPads if your kids have that. Reducing all of that so that it's like out of sight, out of mind. You won't think about it. And then delegating. So interactions, and delegating is more so like who can either help you to do it or do it for you, or does it need to be done right away? And if it doesn't, then to not worry about it. And then we just kind of explained the lifestyle changes also, which is not as important. Worrying about how like, because you can't really do anything now, you're forced to stay home, so you don't really have to adjust to a lifestyle, because basically you're forced to do what the government is telling you to do. Do you want to add anything to that, Christian?
That's pretty much it. And that's pretty much it. Like how you've mentioned that reducing distractions in your household can be planned, and you can manage it to some degree.
Yeah.
Even though some variables you can't control, or you can. And that's the main thing we want to give to our students, and guidelines. If their home environment isn't the best, but you can try to make it more effective. Sources of distraction, for example, phones, social media, knowing that it's an online environment, having extra windows, for example, are gonna really feed into your focus. So removing other tabs, windows that aren't really required for your online courses, or maybe even online shopping that many people do now due to the situation, or even on ordering food online can be done. But setting aside a time frame for that is the main thing, and maximizing your efficiency to study or be in your online class is the main thing for you. And some methods are proper schedules, organizing your papers, presentations, or even just simple assignments before and after your class. And as I mentioned, environmental conditions may vary. For example, what would you say, Shanice?
In regards to environmental conditions, I think the biggest one right now would be supposedly everything is supposed to open up at like on April 30th, and now they're thinking about extending it. So that would put a strain on basically everybody, in regards to the fact that everyone wants to get out of their houses, everyone wants to be able to do things with their kids, and you can't. So it's finding little ways also to keep yourselves busy, entertained, and make sure that your work is done, but also that mentally you're not driving yourself nuts.
And that's the main thing, like contacting your instructor.
Yeah.
For Zoom hours, these are an excellent way to break the ice of like how your situation is going, how you can maybe communicate how you're doing within your online environment, or maybe possibly even making a Zoom meeting with your counselor. These methods are not just for your online courses for your grades. This is also for your mental health, knowing that, you know, motivation is needed. Mental health is a very critical thing to consider when being in the online environment, since no one's watching you, no one's there. The resources are always going to be there for you. Just reach out and we'll be more than likely to help you out.
Yeah.
And for example, you know how I mentioned incremental breaks or short-term goals? There's this little mountain on the little side over here. So taking small steps every day. And, you know, our overall goal is just to have you finish your online course. And hopefully once this COVID situation is over, hopefully we can come back to our normal face-to-face courses. One of the points that he mentioned is going out for a walk and taking a break. So taking a break is important, but it's like there's a big pandemic going on, knowing that, you know, diseases, viruses are a big issue. So you still can go outside in your neighborhood, but all the parks and recreational areas are closed. But walking within your neighborhood and keeping a respectable distance, at least 6 feet in social distance, is the main thing to consider when you're going to go outside. Another point is that organizing or knowing what tasks you need to do. So prioritizing small tasks at hand are the main thing you want to do, especially in your online environment. So one task at a time, so not really multitasking. And a third thing that he mentioned is organizing your place, where, let's say, once after you study or start studying, fix everything to the normal state, reorganizing your papers, your files on your computer, anything like that, just to keep you clean and motivated within your workspace, that knowing that it's not cluttered, nothing's in a mess. And the fourth is knowing, what is that? Just cleaning in general, cleaning your environment is, even if you were to write a paper or start a presentation, starting something will usually result into an end product. So once you have something, it usually transitions to something greater. So even though you don't have the motivation at times that you don't want to work, put something, and that something will usually result into the end product, knowing that you've put some effort, even though you have no motivation at all, knowing that, you know, you've done something. In your mind, it's more of a mental game, knowing that, you know, this is a difficult task, but if you've done something, you've cracked this barrier, and, you know, you can slowly move up to that problem. In conclusion, the key takeaways may be applicable to your household and online environments. Hey, Shanice, can you explain what SMART goals are?
Sure. Okay. So SMART goals, it basically stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So when you're trying to construct your SMART goal, make sure that you're specific. So for example, saying I'm going to start running, that's not necessarily specific, and that's not giving a time, and you're not explaining how it's going to be achievable, how it's relevant to how it'll contribute to your life and how it's measurable. It doesn't have to necessarily just be SMART goals don't have to necessarily just be in relations to your education. You can use it for your home life, your lifestyle changes, anything like that. So for example, for like me, if I were to make a SMART goal for specific, mine would be starting tomorrow, instead of leaving my kids' mess on the ground, I'll actually clean it up. Christian, do you have one?
Yeah, a smart goal for me maybe would be like, maybe feeding my chickens a little bit earlier so they don't crow. It'd be a perfect example.
And then, so for measurable, it says here productivity throughout a time frame. So if my specific goal was to ensure that I'm picking up my kids' messes every day, it would be that instead of me staring at the vacuum and not doing anything, I'll actually do it that way, or like clean it up.
So yeah, so same thing here. So at time bound, maybe around, I would say around 5 or 6. I usually feed my chickens around those times. So I would think maybe feeding them earlier would be a better option on my side. So if I were to feed them earlier, I would have more time throughout the day, maybe in the evening, to have more time for studying than maybe interacting with my chickens. So making my schedule more open and more time bound for myself, I think, is a better option.
Right. So achievable. So my goal is achievable because 1, I have a vacuum. 2, I have like a broom and a dustpan. Now, if I didn't have those things, my goal necessarily wouldn't be achievable because you can clean up your mess with your hands, but the chances of you doing that are like slim to none because nobody wants to pick up a mess with their hands. But my goal would be achievable because I have a vacuum and I have a broom and a dustpan. Christian?
So yeah, like how you've mentioned that, I do have all the resources that make my tasks more achievable. Feeding isn't really hard for me. I have all the measurements and all the food is already there. Just knowing like when I want to do it, when it's relevant in the day is it for them to eat would make sense, right? Like knowing what time relevant, like knowing when I should do it and when I'm not supposed to.
Yeah.
Is more of the thing for me.
So my relevancy in my point of view, to my SMART goal, it is relevant because instead of having to, I guess, mass clean, which will take longer to do rather than me doing it like in small increments during the day, it makes it easier so that I'm able to focus on other things rather than just cleaning up a huge mess at the end of the day and then just basically checking out. And then so time bound, giving yourself a certain time of when you'll get this goal done. So I stated I wanted to start doing this tomorrow. I'm saying that I'm going to do this tomorrow, and it says here that I must apply spring courses of 2020 and ending of 2020, I'm guessing it's supposed to say. But I want to do this like to make it a daily habit rather than giving it a certain date that I want to stop doing this. Christian?
Yeah, so same thing with me, knowing it's a daily chore, knowing it's at my control and knowing, what time I can feed them and when not to is the main thing, making it more I can modify it or maybe even preset everything, maybe organizing the things or having the food ready before even going outside is maybe making it more effective.
If you have any questions in regards to any academic support services that you may need, you can contact the Learning Center by phone at 808-984-3240, email at tlcstaff@hawaii.edu, or you can visit our website at maui.hawaii.edu/tlc. I hope you stay motivated through COVID-19.
Don't forget, stay inside.